folks. How are you? We're so happy that you could join us here today. I'm Paige Bradley, as you all know, Executive Director of Women's Empowerment, and it's really a pleasure to welcome you to Women's Empowerment's first virtual community gathering. I realize that unlike a regular Zoom meeting, you all can't necessarily see each other, which is a bit unfortunate, but we do have a great group here. I think as of right now, we've got 24 people out there, women's empowerment supporters, board members, lead volunteers gathered today. And I can't thank you enough for being here. And what a time it is. It seems like ages since we've all been able to gather in person with our women's empowerment community. And I know I speak for all of us when I say that we miss you and really can't wait to get together again for the time when we can safely gather and leave our living rooms, our home offices, where we now find ourselves. So as the pandemic evolves and continues to change the way that we live and work, we wanted to provide a chance for us to come together in solidarity, to share with you the heart and soul of women's empowerment, both the challenges and the pretty incredible solutions that we've been pursuing with our amazing partners, two of whom you see here, since the world began to change so dramatically in early March. And I imagine if you're like me, it's sort of hard to say right now whether early March feels like yesterday or 2 years ago. I don't know. Some days it feels like both, but what a different world it is indeed. So here we are this morning to share what's been happening both at Women's Empowerment and with two of our partners in particular who work in very different parts of the world. Our two special guests are well known to many, if not all of you, Elisa Sabatini of VIA International and Jackson Kaguri in Uganda, although not currently in Uganda, currently in Michigan. And in a moment, I will turn it over to Debbie McGraw, WE's incredible president, who's going to tell you more about our partnerships and introduce our guests. So before I share with you some of the very positive news about women's empowerment and about our partners, I feel like it's important for us to take a moment to pause and reflect on this moment where we find ourselves in our country. It's not sufficient at all to say that these are difficult days for all of us, for our nation, for our world. And particularly in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, we're being given a chance to see, to act on the inequality and on racism in a way that is long overdue. And I'm sure that some of you are no doubt aware that there's a period of silence that's being taken this morning, actually, as we talk here, to honor George and to consider the implications for all of us of what has brought us to this place. So I just wanted to invite you to join me and our panelists this morning in a moment of silence that we can take together as a community before we jump into our program. So let's just take a moment now to do that together. Thank you. The experience of these last weeks have certainly made me personally feel even more grateful to be at an organization like Women's Empowerment that pursues fairness and opportunity for those who suffer. And we do this through a social justice lens. And we have, as you know, as our mission, the righting of one of the world's most egregious and discriminatory wrongs, and that is poverty alleviation. So our purpose today is to connect you once again with our mission and allow you to share in the sense of making a positive difference at this very tough time, because you have made an incredibly positive difference, and your support for this work in a very real way is enabling poor women who are disproportionately impacted by this pandemic to have hope that they can get through it, that their businesses can survive, that emergency funding may be available to them, and that they can access the services that they need now, and that there are those on their side in the weeks and months and years ahead. So we gather at a time of intense pain and reflection in our country that's being really transformed into a time of incredible action. And we're seeing that in our streets, in our social media feeds, and across our communities. So I am incredibly heartened by the level of engagement that and activism that we're witnessing. And I'm sure you are too. And you are part of that. And I just really want to honor all that's being done to address the deep wrongs in our society and in our world. And I think one of the things we were talking about with our panelists before we got on is that the pandemic is affecting the way some of us feel like we're able to show up at this moment in our country, but we're all doing what we can. And as an organization, we are committed to doing even more at our board level, to examine the way we work, to diversify the leadership of our organization in a very proactive way. So please take heart in knowing that this is an important and live topic for us as an organization. Some of the people who've been deeply engaged in this work, of course, are the Women's Empowerment Board of Directors, who've taken tangible and proactive steps to be the best partner that we can possibly be now at this time when poor women locally and around the world need us more than ever. We've had numerous internal strategy sessions to explore how best to do this. And the unanimous and unilateral decision has been to provide the greatest amount of funding that we possibly can to our partners now at this time of greatest need. Just last week, our board made the really important decision to fully fund the budgets of all of our partners for this year, which means in 2020, we will grant $240,000 for women's poverty alleviation and empowerment programs in 5 countries. So we're very proud of that, and mindful that we do this at a time of great economic uncertainty that certainly has impacts on philanthropy, but we do it with a real clarity of purpose that we exist not to save funds for a rainy day, but to do all that we can now, because of course, this is our rainy day. So I hope that you will share in that pride, because your financial support is what is making this possible. Most of you know that we're a small organization and that we raise the funds that we provide to our partners every year. So the very generous response that we've seen from so many of you to our fundraising efforts just in the last 2 months has been really inspiring. So we thank you for being part of that. In addition to the board decision to fully fund our partners at this time, which will mean grants in the amount anywhere from $10,000 to $52,000 to each of our 8 partners, the board also decided to extend flexibility to our partners to decide for themselves how to redirect any aid and resources that they may need at this time to respond to the existing and emerging needs of the women. So what that means is, if the proposal and program that we originally decided to fund might have been to support loans, but the emerging need is actually to address food insecurity or a need for immediate cash assistance, our partners have the discretion to rush women's empowerment support to wherever they deem that need to be greatest. So we have been just blown away by the efficiency and speed of our partners and their teams to adapt to these changing needs, and you're going to hear more about this in a minute. So one more positive piece of news that I wanted to share with you, I'm very thrilled to share, and you're actually the first people to be hearing about this, is that we just received word from Wynn Cox, who is our founder, our co-founder, and current board member, that she has actually set up an endowment for women's empowerment in the amount of $300,000 at the San Diego Foundation that will enable women's empowerment to exist for years to come. It will provide, applause, a source of sustainability for the organization into the future. So that generosity and vision is really Wynn's life's work and legacy. So it will continue to help the poorest women into the future. So we're thrilled about that. So with that good news, I would like to turn it over to Debbie McGraw, WE's incredible president, who's just been a beacon of wisdom and strength at this tough time for the organization. She will introduce Elisa and Jackson, who will then speak for about 10 minutes each. And during that time, if you have questions, I wanted to invite you to please use the chat feature here in the webinar. You'll probably see a button at the bottom of your screen that says chat, which if you click on it, you'll have a dialog box where you can enter a question, and do so as they occur to you. And then at the end of our guest speaking time, I can then address some of those questions to them, and they can respond at the end. So with that, I give you Debbie McGraw.
Thank you, Paige. As Paige said, we're grateful to two of our longstanding partners for joining us today to give us an update on the women and communities that our grants are supporting. As long-time WE supporters, you all need little in the way of introduction. So just a few words from me. First, we welcome our friend, Elisa Sabatini, president of VIA International since 1998. VIA International's stated mission is to create pathways to self-reliance through community innovation for people at the border and throughout Mexico and Central America. This goal meshes totally with WE's mission, empowering women with tools to work their way out of poverty, care for their families, and strengthen their communities. Our partnership supports the microfinance program Estima that provides group loans and support to women working in the sex trade industry. It allows them to develop and successfully operate their own business, as well as providing them instruction on finance, health, and empowerment topics. Our renewed partnership with VIA International will also support their newest initiative, Via Migrante, an effort to address the humanitarian crisis occurring right now at the border through programs similar to Estima. In a recent conversation with Elisa, Paige and I were inspired by the innovations that VIA International is employing to support both programs in this vulnerable pandemic environment. We've been partnered with VIA International since 2014, and our total funding, including the newest grant, is $82,400. Our second guest today is Jackson Kiguri, founder and president of Nyaka. Many, if not all of you, have had the pleasure of attending a WE event in the past that has featured Jackson. His laser-focused dedication and passion to support the children, grandmothers, and communities in rural Uganda is always riveting. Jackson founded Nyaka in 2001 with personal money to build a small school in the Nyaka area of Western Uganda for the benefit of AIDS orphans. Continued and incremental investment and support for these children led to the beginning of the Grandmothers Program in 2007 as a group-based peer-to-peer support program. The original 51 granny groups with about 2,500 grandmothers has blossomed now into a program that includes over 15,000 grandmothers who are raising over 60,000 orphans. Grant funding from WE has been a vital source of funding to support this program. And I must mention to anybody who doesn't know, 6 of us, we supporters, including Jeanette DeWise and Steve Wolf, our co-liaisons for the program, visited the grandmother program in Uganda in January. It was such an unbelievable treat to meet these positive women who just don't quit. And an added bonus was that Jackson was there to show us around and give us the latest on all of his vision, including, among other programs that he's innovated, the program EDGA, an initiative to combat sexual and gender-based violence perpetrated against women and children. In our conversation with Jackson, we learned that this effort continues unabated as Uganda has faced a countrywide lockdown due to the coronavirus. WE's partnership with Nyaka spans the years since 2014. Our total funding to Nyaka, including the newest grant, is $289,000. With that, let me turn the program over now to Elisa Sabatini from VIA International.
Thanks for having me here today. I'm a little bit wondering where to start to tell you what's been happening, because I think we were noting that March seems like a couple of years ago, actually, what's been happening in our organization and then just for all of us here in this changed world. We are a social business. Our organization, a large portion of our funding comes from our educational immersion programs, where we offer primarily students, but also other social groups and everything, the opportunity to visit our locations. So we have visitors coming to the border region, US-Mexico, Mexico City, Guatemala, Costa Rica. And in March, all of that halted. So we had a real flurry of activity around figuring out how to engage with the partners that were all scheduled to come through July. In fact, my one trip that was canceled that I'm very sad about is a trip to our one outlying partner, which is in Sri Lanka. And I'm sad to say we won't be going there. I think one of the things I'd like to speak about is how, for many of us, the world shrunk. In an odd way, here is a world that we have the intention of making more interdependent and more connected and more available of ourselves to each other. And the world shrunk into this small feeling. I currently am sitting in my house, which my fence looks out over the hills of Tijuana, and it feels very far away. It's a very odd feeling. But in this situation, we had to figure out what we would do. We had our loan groups. We have the Estima program with the current 4 loan groups, and then our community-based loan program that has about 24 loan groups. And we were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do to support them to continue? And we designed a program of moratoriums so that they could be delayed, or we had 2 or 3 strategies for their loan process. And the thing I'm here to report to you today is that we've closed 2 of the loan groups with complete full repayment. They're getting additional loans as we speak. And the balance of our community-based loan groups have continued, and they've continued repayment, with their businesses essentially closed, a lot of them. So we've been very, very inspired by their actually responsibility to one another to continue payments, and then also their responsibility to the community. And that's what I want to speak about primarily today. Parallel to Estima and our microcredit organization in Mexico, we have been working on a program that we call Via Migrante, which is intended to be an integrated basket, if you will, of services to new migrants that are coming into the area. And there are many. There is also a large population of deportees. They've been deported from the United States. Many are 30-year residents of the US and now are living on the other side of the border in Tijuana. So these populations struggle to become established in Tijuana. And this program, Via Migrante, has the purpose of their vital, thriving lives now that they are going to be residents of Tijuana. As you probably know, many of the migrants had come with the intention of crossing the border and seeking asylum in the US. Well, that's virtually now an impossibility. And there's the other program, which was the Return to Mexico program, where many, many migrants were sent back from their asylum process to Mexico to wait for their opportunity to enter into the courts. And now much of that is just stopped. So in their very resilient way, many migrants are choosing to make Tijuana their home. And that is the group that we are looking toward working with in the coming years to support their process of establishing themselves in the city of Tijuana. And we look to our experience with Estima as the model we can use to do that. Because when we began our work with sex workers in the city of Tijuana, they were a very disconnected group of women. One not knowing the other, not really at all in solidarity with the other. And now what we're seeing is that after these years of working with them, we have created this solidarity among this very fragile group of women. So we are believing that the Estima program is kind of our model for going forward with the migrant groups. But then COVID hit. So what do you do? What do? You can't meet, you can't do the gatherings that are so important to the solidarity. And what these innovative women did is figure out how they can communicate via WhatsApp and then make their loan payments, send photos of the receipts to our loan officer, and continue what they were doing. But in the meantime, so many of their businesses were closed. And so many were looking for other ways to create income. So we launched an initiative through Via Migrante to raise funding so that these women could provide food, some cleaning products, and some other services to the shelters that with the COVID crisis have completely shut down. So they're shut down with people inside them. So currently we're serving 2 shelters. One has 75 people living in it. They live in tents under a Quonset hut type roof. And the circumstances, of course, with COVID make that very difficult. And so we have microcredit catering women that are bringing meals on a weekly basis to cover some of their food costs and needs in the shelter. So we're employing our micro entrepreneurs to support the shelters. As well, we have women that their business is cleaning products, and many of them have this environmental cleaning product called Swipe, and those are also bringing their products to the shelters. So we're sort of on the side raising more money to be able to keep a number of our entrepreneurs employed during this kind of shutdown. And to speak a little more generally, I mean, we've been very inspired. We have the first shelter with 75. The second shelter has 130 people, most of whom are affected by AIDS. And so we're trying to expand our outreach to those through our micro entrepreneurs who offered to make those deliveries and support those shelter communities. But to speak a little broader to the conditions of Mexico, and you're probably hearing some of this in the news, but Mexico is peaking now. And so the situation in Tijuana, as well as in central Mexico, is extreme and difficult. The hospitals are pretty overwhelmed. in Mexicali here along the border. People have come across to El Centro. Those hospitals are airlifting people out. And the cases are exponentially increasing on a daily basis. So we don't feel here in the border that we're sort of out of the woods in terms of the COVID situation. But my inspiration is coming from these women themselves that have, you know, stepped up to offer support to some of the most vulnerable and keep their businesses going. So I'll leave my comments there. I want to be sure and pass a warm welcome on to Jackson for his comments about clear across. I'm sort of sending a plane clear across the ocean to Uganda, and we'll be interested to hear what they're doing there. Thank you so much for having me.
I will unmute myself here. Paige, if you could give me permission to share slides. While Paige is doing that, I greet all of you and welcome you to this Zoom event. Thank you, Elisa, for welcoming me, Debbie, Paige, and Women Empowerment. I am coming at a difficult time, as you all know what's going on in the world. We already did a prayer and silence. As a Black man living in the United States, you know how difficult it is. I didn't grow up here, but I live here with 4 children. 2 of them are boys and 1 is going to college. You cannot imagine the conversations we have on the dinner table and the fear my children have, or the fear I have when my oldest son goes out to drive in these circumstances. But I live here for a reason, and that reason ties into fighting injustice, economic, social, and that's what we're going to talk about right here. Because in collaboration with Women Empowerment, we have made a transformation of the largest magnitude and empowered women who are standing strong right now because of all of your support. The board, the volunteers, and everyone who has participated, your encouragement and prayers continue to uplift what we do, how we do it. I'm going to go ahead and get you some pictures because I believe pictures speak a story. And just like many of us here, this is new to me, but I'm going to try and see if I can get it. If I don't get it, we will let it go. But here we have devices, and this is hard, ladies and gentlemen.
It is. It's been trial by fire for all of us getting to know this platform.
Yes, I got it.
All right, there's your screen.
And there is one. So that's a big win right there. Thank you, we. So Women Empowerment has been with us. The summary has been given by our amazing, fearless leader, Debbie. What you see there is a child. This picture was actually done before COVID started, which tells you that Nyaka has always been prepared for pandemics, mainly because Nyaka was started during the pandemic of HIV and AIDS. And so here is one student washing hands at Nyaka. And here is Women Empowerment highlights, which Debbie has already highlighted. Seems like she took my slide and she had not seen my slide yet. Women Empowerment started funding Nyaka through the Grandmother Program in 2014. This is information that has already been given. But I wanted to bring a picture when Debbie and Jeanette and the team visited earlier this year. We were able to meet with women right away in the morning while they were being trained on gender-based violence and sexual assault that happens in our communities. The number I have here, Debbie, doesn't include the current funding we just received. So plus the current funding gives us the number. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is more than $250,000, which has been invested in 15,000 women. This has transformed the entire community, and I will give you specific examples as we go along. The chart you look here is really a highlight since Uganda has been on a lockdown. COVID hit while I was in Uganda. I was on the last plane that left the country to come back to Michigan to my children. And so this whole time, Uganda has been on a lockdown. Now, a lockdown in the United States would mean you are in your house and you still have your running water. A lockdown in Uganda for these women who we are supporting in rural Uganda means lack of access to their gardens, lack of the food they eat every day, or going to buy salt and pepper. But here, by June 4th, the lockdown has been extended, and I will focus most of my remarks right on COVID-19 as an update. And Women Empowerment has more information about Nyaka. Feel free to reach Paige or reach me, and we'll get you more information as needed. As of June 4th, 2020, that's the map of Uganda, where the two leaves facing down, which is actually a bird, is where Nyaka is located in the corner southwestern Uganda. The orange dots are the cases of COVID in Uganda. 522 have been identified. These are mostly people who are coming in from outside the country. The country of Uganda, 46 million people. Those are the cases we have, but we have been on a lockdown for longer than many other countries. And when you go down and meet the grandmothers, you will see that Nyaka never stopped working even when the lockdown was on. On the left-hand side, you will see our Brenda, a staff member, taking food, soap, and some sanitary products for the grandmother who is living with those kids. We don't know the ages of our grandmothers because they don't know their birthdays, but we estimate we even have some who are 100 years. So I can't tell you the age of that grandmother, but vulnerable members of our community are mostly elderly people, because once they can't work and go to the gardens, means they cannot eat or bring food for their children. And to make matters worse, these grandmothers are raising grandchildren instead of grandchildren being with their parents due to HIV/AIDS. During our interventions, we visited a grandmother on the right, and many of you know from the pictures and the videos that have been shared that grandmothers had a uniform. This was their asking, they wanted a uniform. They make money out of the money we loan them, our revolving fund, and pay for their own uniform. I love how this grandmother said, I cannot be empowered by myself. I'm going to make a uniform for my young child, young grandbaby, so she can learn how to love and care for others regardless of her age. This is typical in our society that women get to learn earlier on than men. And whenever I say that, people say, so then why are you speaking on behalf of women? I'm a feminist by heart. My life has been all around women, women who include my grandmother, my mother, wife, children, sisters. We take care of each other, and Nyaka does that even more. When the country got shut down, ladies and gentlemen, the grandmother called Rose, had already received money through microfinance, through women empowerment. This grandmother actually is among the groups that Debbie met when you were there with Jeanette and Steve. Grandmother Rose works in a market on a store selling food. She grows the pineapples and grows potatoes and onions and bring them to the market. She has been able to employ her grandchild, and her husband is now employed by her, thanks to you. And now she was running a store in the market. The president of Uganda said nobody is to move back and forth. If you want to work in your market, you have to stay at the store in the market day and night. And Rose said, okay, if that's what it means to make money and to continue feeding the community I work in, I will stay. Since March 20th, to this day as I speak to you, Rose sleeps in the market. There's no toilet, there's no shelter. Rain comes, she covers herself. In the morning, she's able to sell her products. Her grandchildren during the day before curfew hits bring her food to eat and change of clothing, and she has stayed there, number one, to serve other grandmothers food, number two, continue making money. So COVID has come and stopped so many people, it has not stopped Rose. and Laws is one of 15,000 grandmothers who are working so hard every single day. I also want to highlight that Women Empowerment has not only supported, we have visited Uganda 4 times. I was so tempted to put a video of Debbie, the chairperson of the board, dancing here, but then I realized the page had already sent you that video. Let me tell you about another grandmother, and this is the group of grandmothers here. This will be a video that you can see later. I want to tell you about another grandmother who recently passed away. She passed away because of high blood pressure. She passed away during COVID-19. Our communities are communities that get together every single day, talk to each other, support one another. This grandmother had started by making baskets and jewelry when we only had $20 in 2007. The $20 grew into a project for pigs and goats, which she raised and then sold pigs and goats and bought 2 boda bodas, small motorcycles, which transport people back and forth. This boda boda, one she gave to her oldest grandson, one she gave to her son, and they started working for her, bringing her an income every day. Then she said, you know what, now that I can sit and relax, I'm going to buy all the sugar I need. I'm going to eat all the cupcakes I can receive. She opened up her shop. She forgot about her blood pressure, and blood pressure came and killed her earlier this year. But during her days in the hospital, she wrote a letter to her grandmother group and said, Nyaka grandmothers and all supporters took me from zero to glory. The businesses I started are going to continue growing. She has a husband, she has a grandson, and she has a son who are fully employed. The shop has been taken over by one of her sisters, daughters-in-law, who has continued to take this business. Ladies and gentlemen, we started in Nyaka to break the cycle of poverty and deprivation. We wanted to empower, transform communities for a better community and a better future. I can say we have done it with you. Can say we are continuing to do it every single day. As COVID continues to rage on and lockdowns, we are facing a challenge of women and girls and boys who are being sexually assaulted. But we received good news from we saying the money you have right now, you can use it appropriately as needed. We thank the board. We thank you, Paige, for your leadership, and Debbie for your leadership, for allowing us to be flexible with that money. Our workers, the grandmothers group, and the people who are working in sexual assault program are considered essential workers. So our motorcycles and our car is able to move and check on grandmothers. We have made arrests and put them in jail working with the police. The only thing we have also canceled or postponed, like Elisa, every year we have a walk against gender-based violence. That walk was take place in July. We have postponed it to until further notice when we are allowed to meet. But other than that, your sisters, your mothers, your grandmothers that we have supported all these many years are continuing to stay strong, are continuing to empower the communities, and we won't give up no matter the circumstances or obstacles we face. Together, we continue to do this work. We would not have been able to do it, and we won't be able to do it without you. We thank you.
Thank you, Jackson and Elisa, as always, incredibly inspiring and informative. And we're just, from the women's empowerment perspective, just so grateful for the chance to partner with you and to support your work that has always been so impressive, and to see how you have adapted your services and met the women in your communities where they are and filling their needs is incredibly gratifying for us. So we just can't thank you enough. I want to take a look now and see if we have some questions. And it looks like we have, again, just want to encourage any of you on the phone, on the call right now, if you have questions for Elisa, for Jackson, or for Debbie, or me for that matter, please just type them into the chat box and we will address them. One of the questions we do have is for Jackson, which is to talk a bit about what the state of your expansion plans might look like right now. I think sustaining and maintaining has been a priority, but looking ahead, what you envision.
Yeah, so I was attempted to start typing, thinking it was directed to me, directed to me alone. So ladies and gentlemen, as you heard in an introduction Debbie gave, we started with 51 grandmothers when Nyaka opened the doors. And these were grandmothers of children who were attending schools. We run schools. Nyaka is a holistic-based organization. Since then, 2001, we have gone exponentially, and we are now at 15,000 grandmothers. Somebody asked me once, why do you keep increasing the numbers? Why don't you hit sustainability and get few and make them millionaires? Those will be few millionaire grandmothers leaving hundreds and hundreds thousand grandmothers around. What we have done is to provide a foundation. Just like we provide a foundation for children in education, we are providing a foundation for these women. And ladies and gentlemen, when you hear grandmother, many of you are tempted to think of 100 years, 85 years old. Grandmother in our society is a title that is given to that caring person. Some are 35 years old. They are young and they are raising children. As long as you are raising children who are orphaned and you are taking care of them and you are in need, the group we recruit, once a year we have recruitment going on, and they will allow them to join. So this year we were targeting to go up to 20,000 grandmothers. Half of the year before COVID hit us in March, we had already recruited 5,000 grandmothers, which is why we had 15,000. And we will still go ahead and recruit more 5,000 grandmothers so that by December 31st, COVID or no COVID, we will have 20,000 grandmothers who are wearing their uniform, raising their shoulders and head up and taking care of children to make their society and our society a better place. Then in 2021, we'll add on 10,000 for the next 5 years. That is going to take us to nearly 250,000 children being cared for, and the Earth's expansion is not going to be stopped by obstacles we are facing now.
Fantastic. Wow, the numbers are so impressive. And I think it's heartening for all of us to hear your vision for how to continue expanding at a time when things feel so uncertain. So thank you for sharing that. Elisa, we have a question for you now, which is about the work that you mentioned where microloan recipients are providing food to the shelters and through the Via Migrante program. So the question is, where is the money coming from to pay the women who are providing the services, the cleaning products and the food to the shelters?
That's a great question and a current challenge. But in the middle of May, we launched, which is for us a new project, a new website that is called Via Cafe. So it's viacafe.org. And on there you find a variety of options. Our effort there was to keep people engaged in this time of being shut down. And so there are a variety of offerings on that website. But among them is support to the Via Migrante initiative. And we've had, some initial success. It's only been going for a couple of weeks here, but that you can also take a Spanish class there if you're so moved. And we have some openings for the next couple of sessions of Spanish that are 3-week courses. And then the third offering there is our Via Voices series, where we're bringing voices from the communities on a weekly basis for people to hear what's actually happening, full on from people in the communities. So we're currently in that challenge of raising the funds for for that initiative. But we think it's a win-win because the women can keep their businesses going and we
Right.
can support the shelters.
Well, that's one of the things that I know struck us, Debbie and myself, when we spoke about the new Via Migrante program and the way you were assisting the women entrepreneurs who are cooking and preparing food by giving them a source of income, and then also serving the food insecurity and hunger needs of the migrants in the shelters. So not easy by any means, but a creative solution to an incredible problem. We have another question for you, Elisa, which is well, before I do that, I just want to flag that we are at a little after 11:45. We had said 45 minutes for our call, but we're not going to get kicked off the platform here. So for any of you who are able to stay with us, please do, and we'll continue taking a couple of more questions for our friends here. So the next is for Lisa, and that is, which migrant community do you intend to focus on first, given the various groups that are now there? And which do you hope to eventually serve? I know there's a Haitian community, there are Hondurans, etc.
Well, we're having a conference call on this afternoon and talking about also in this time of shutdown, it's a little hard to organize and form groups. But our initial outreach has been to the Mixteco community. These are Oaxacan people from southern Mexico who have come up and established more or less a kind of settlement community in one section of Tijuana. And we've already had some initial outreach with them, and they are in some ways among the most disenfranchised in Mexico. So that's one community. The second community that we are working with, and we've had several inquiries from these women, are deported mothers. So the deported mothers that are living which we consider part of the sort of like Via Migrante is migrantes and deported. So the Via Migrante initiative would also support these deported moms. And that we've had, interestingly, sort of a group of them approach us about what might be possible to work with them. So we feel like there's something of a two-way street there. And then the third group is actually in the shelter we're supporting, which is this Juventud 2000. Many of the families in there are Salvadoran. Not exclusively, there are Hondurans, and there are little networks of those women that are interested in potentially, actually they've sort of already launched out of the back of the shelter, which in Salvador is a pupuseria, which is the street food that is prevalent in Salvador and unknown in Tijuana. So it makes it kind of exotic for people in Tijuana. So we are hoping that we'll be supporting that women that are coming out of that shelter in the near term. The Haitian community has also been in contact with us. They are extremely entrepreneurial and have already started several restaurants and several other business initiatives in Tijuana. But we anticipate that maybe within the first year or so, toward the end of the year, we'd also have some outreach with the Haitians.
Okay, wonderful. I think, unless we have any other questions, I think we will wrap up our Q&A there with our panelists. And of course, thank you again so much for all that you are doing, and for taking your precious time to share a moment with us this morning. Before we let you go, our guests, I want to thank you, of course, for being here. I hope that you enjoyed our discussion and that you learned something and gained some inspiration and feeling of impact from your being such an important part of the women's empowerment community. Because even though we can't all be together, all that you are doing and giving and sharing really is touching lives that are well beyond our borders. So it means so much to us. The other thing that we would like to do in the days ahead, with your willingness, is reach out to you individually to talk a little bit more about how you are doing and to get your feedback about what women's empowerment's work is going to look like in the months ahead. As most of you know, because you're part of it, we do a large gala event at the Museum of Photographic Arts in the fall, which we're not going to be able to do this year, which is disappointing to us and to you, I can imagine. It represents a very important part of our fundraising plan for the year. Generally, it raises about $100,000 for us. So we would really love to hear from you individually about whether we should think about pivoting that event to something online. I don't know. Are people enjoying those experiences? I don't know. But the point is, we'd love to talk. So you'll be hearing from me and from Debbie to connect more individually and talk about the work we can do together for the remainder of the year. So with that, I thank you. I wish you well. If you go out, stay well, take good care, and please let me know if you have any follow-up questions. We hope to schedule another, at least one more, if not more than that, of these calls, so we will be in touch. Thank you, Elisa and Jackson and Debbie, and to all of you for joining us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye.